In my last video, I started to discuss some of the training techniques and dietary suggestions that were offered by Vince Gironda. Vince Gironda was a leading bodybuilding trainer in the late 1960s and early 70s. He had a famous gym called Vince's Gym, which was located in North Hollywood, California, which produced some of the preeminent bodybuilding champions of the mid 60s. And a lot of movie stars trained at his gym. Vince, as I said in the last video, was very avant-garde. He was well ahead of his time. Vince was probably mostly self-taught. I'm not aware that he had any advanced academic degrees, but what he knew back 60 years ago, a lot of it is just being confirmed today by the same people that have academic degrees. So Vince introduced a lot of revolutionary exercise and dietary techniques that proved enormously efficient and popular. So let's get back to discussing. And again, in this video, though, I want to emphasize that I'm going to mention what Vince suggested were myths related to training and diet, and whether his advice is still relevant today, some 60 years after he offered this advice. In other words, what has science found in the intervening years to either prove or disprove some of Vince's contentions about diet and exercise? So let's move on to the next one. The next one is not touching the chest of the bar when doing pull-ups. In other words, a lot of people, when they do pull-ups or chins, they will literally only go up to their chin or even the top of the head. Now, Vince pointed out that to fully contract the lats, so latissimus dorsi, which is the main objective of doing chins or pull-ups, the arms have to be down and back. In other words, it's a kind of a motion where you pull your arms down along the side of the torso. So to fully contract the lats, you'd have to do a chin where you do a medium, not a super wide grip, because that actually shortens the range of motion. It doesn't give you wider lats. That's a myth. Doing wide grip chins does not give you wider lats. That's an old myth. Same with wide grip pull downs. Doing a wide grip only shortens the range of motion. You want to use like a medium grip or a shoulder width grip, and when you pull yourself up, you want to touch the top of the chin bar with the top of your chest. If you look at your arms, they're going all the way down by the side of the torso. So what you're doing is you're fully contracting the lats. In addition, you're also fully working most of the upper back muscles, teres major, minor, rhomboids. All these muscles look very impressive if you're doing a back pose as a bodybuilder, a double arm back pose, something like that. I recall there was a guy who trained at Vince's gym named Dominic Giuliano, long forgotten probably. He wasn't didn't win a lot of major titles. He was a perennial competitor in national contests. But he was known for his extremely wide back. His lats were extremely wide. I mean, just fantastically preceding some of the guys with the wide lats today, like or more recently, like Dorian Yates and Ron Coleman. This guy had wide lats way back in the early 50s. Now, he was the guy that actually came up with the idea of chinning all the way up, doing pull downs where you have your upper chest touch the bar. Vince noticed his development and proceeded to adopt that as the proper way to do chins or pull-ups. And this is the way to this day, I still do my chins. I start my back workout with about 4 sets of chins, body weight only, and I endeavor to touch my chest to the bar through every rep. And if I do about 12 reps, I immediately get a huge pump in my lats. So that's the next one. In other words, so that's the proper way to do chins, and it is true. It's been proven that to fully contract the lats, the arms have to be down and back alongside the torso. When you see people doing, for example, I've seen people doing one-arm dumbbell rows using extremely heavy weight, and they go halfway up. In other words, they're not contracting the lats at all. What's pulling the weight is the rear deltoid muscles and the biceps. there's very little back and lat involvement. When I interviewed Lee Haney, who won the Mr. Olympia 8 times years ago, we were discussing his back routine. Lee Haney won the Olympia 8 times, largely not only on his overall physique, but he had a tremendous back development. They used to say that when Haney turned to the rear, that's when he won the contest because his back was so impressive. When we were talking about Lee's back routine, he mentioned one-arm rows, and looking at his back, I said, well, you must have, what did you use, like 150 pounds or something? And he looked at me, he said, I never used more than 75 pounds. And then he showed me how he did it. And sure enough, he'd take the dumbbell and bring it all the way back alongside his torso, and he'd bring it all the way past, full contraction at the top. He says you can't do that movement using a lot of weight. He says, and this is how it builds the lats much better. It gets more upper back involvement. So again, does Vince's contention that chinning all the way to the upper chest build better lats? The answer is yes. Next thing, bench presses to the pecs. Bench presses for the pecs, I should say. Vince felt that bench presses were a terrible chest exercise. He said that they were 90% anterior or front deltoid, which is true. If you look at the kinetics or the movement pattern of bench presses, the pecs only come into play in the first 1/3 of the movement. In the first 1/3 of the movement, period. After that, the triceps, front deltoid, and take over basically, and the pecs aren't really involved. This makes sense when you consider that the main function of the pectoral muscle is to cross the arms over the chest like this, like a flying motion. That's the function of the pectoral muscles. And Vince felt that bench presses were far more of a tricep front delta exercise than a chest exercise. Now, Vince's prescription or his recommendation to work, if you want to do bench presses for chest, was to either use a machine. He had a special machine, like a bar. It's hard to explain, but it was a machine where, almost like a Smith machine, where you could bring the bar down to your neck. And this, of course, put much more emphasis on the upper pectoral muscles. Now, Vince felt that too many bodybuilders had overdeveloped lower pectorals, which gave their pecs kind of a big, kind of sagging appearance, which he thought was very ugly. So what he did, he suggested if you're going to do bench presses at all, use either a barbell or a machine, like a Smith machine, and bring the bar down to the neck. Now, this really works the upper pec very well. When Mr. Olympia, Larry Scott, who won the first 2 Mr. Olympia titles, when he did bench presses, this is the way he did it. He did it on a machine, and he brought it down to his neck. However, the only problem with that is after a while, if you really go hard on it, you get some AC joint, acromioclavicular. You get some stress on the joint there. It can be quite painful, and that's what happened to me. I had to cut out bench presses to the neck. I was getting severe pains in my shoulder joints from doing it. It's kind of an unnatural position. Now, the pec exercise that Vince thought, or pectoral exercise, that Vince thought was the best pectoral exercise was what he called V-dips. He had a special parallel dip bar that kind of was in the shape of a V, where and when you did it, you turn your hands in like this, and if you look at the movement, you'd keep your head down against your chest and you'd lean forward. It was almost like doing a standing bench press, except now the stress would be directly on the pectorals. It was kind of a difficult exercise to do. When I trained at Vince's gym, I did use that special parallel V bar, which Vince told me to do. You don't argue with Vince, but trust me. And I did that, and I did 6 sets of 6 reps. I think 6 sets of 8 reps. Tremendous pectoral pump. And this type of dip would give you that great line under the pec that looks so impressive in well-developed pectoral muscles. That's the exercise. Vince also felt that some pulley exercises for chest were decent too. But by far, what he considered the best pectoral exercise was V-bar dips. Bench presses, standard barbell bench press, complete waste of time for pectorals. He felt it was almost all front delt and triceps, which is correct. Uh, Vince was not a believer in squats. There were no squat racks in Vince's gym. Vince, again, was much more into the aesthetics of the human male physique rather than just mass. And he felt one of the ugliest aspects of a male physique is having a big, giant gluteus maximus development. In other words, having a big ass. He thought that was really ugly because along with a big butt that comes from having massive gluteus maximus or big glutes, you also tended to have wider hips, and Vince thought that was very unaesthetic. He felt that narrow hips, smaller waist was much more aesthetic. There's certain bodybuilders that went out of their way to avoid developing their glute muscles. Among them was Steve Reeves, famous movie Hercules, 1947 Mr. America, 1950 Mr. Universe, who structured his thigh routine to specifically avoid exercises that would overdevelop his glutes. So he did stuff like hack squats and front squats. And this is what Vince basically recommended. Rather than doing squats, he recommended a special type of hack squat. He had a hack squat machine in his gym where you kind of thrust your hips forward, but the form of the exercise was done in such a way that you would get both the lower and upper thighs. He recommended that, and also Vince was very big on an exercise called sissy squats, where you hold a bar across your chest, and as you squat down, you kind of lean back. You have to hook your feet under something, obviously. It doesn't require, you can't use a lot of weight at all. You lean back, and what this does is completely throws the glutes and hips out of the exercise and puts the stress directly on the front thighs. My good friend Doug Brignoli, towards the end of his life, he was a strong advocate of a special type of sissy squat that involved using a pulley. He felt it was the best thigh exercise he ever did because it put the stress directly on the frontal thigh muscles and not on the glutes. Now, if you go into gyms today, like Gold's Gym, you see several so-called glute machines. What do they call them? Glute raise machines, where people go out of their way to develop their glutes, especially women. Women are very concerned about developing their glutes because women tend to put fat because of genetic and hormonal reasons. They tend to accumulate fat on their gluteus, and they don't like that look. So a lot of women are very big on doing glute exercises. They use the glute machine. Since spot reducing, as I pointed out in the last video, spot reducing is a myth, and the women are using these glute machines to reduce or prevent fat deposition in their glutes. They're wasting their time because that's mostly diet. The glute machines develop the gluteus maximus muscle, period. That's what they do. So who should use glute machines, if anyone? If you already have like huge glutes, forget about doing direct glute exercises. They're not necessary. In most cases, and I've written about this in my Applied Metabolics publication, when they've compared exercises to develop the glutes, surprisingly, the standard exercises such as squats and leg presses using full ranges of motion, in other words, doing full squats and full leg presses, adequately work the glutes. The actual number one exercise was stepping up on a bench, holding a weight, one leg at a time. That's the actual main, that actually worked better than the glute machines. Now, who should work the glutes? The gluteus maximus muscle is the bulkiest muscle in the human body. And unfortunately, it's also one of the first muscles to go when you age. Most men will notice that they're getting a flatter ass, unless they're very fat, that their ass will literally practically disappear with age. This has happened to Arnold Schwarzenegger, and it's happened to me, to be frank. I mean, I never had big glutes, but my glutes practically have disappeared, even though I still do leg braces, and that has to do with age-associated muscle atrophy. Because the glutes are the bulkiest muscles in the body, they're the ones that the body, for some reason, allows to go first. But the glutes are very important muscles because they're needed for walking and for locomotion, for movement. So it's important to have strong glutes, and they also act as a backup to your thigh muscles. So if you're a man over 40 and you're starting to notice some glute atrophy, which definitely will occur, if you want to do some direct glute work, that's fine. But again, Vince did not like squats. He did not have squat racks in the gym. In fact, Arnold Schwarzenegger, when he first came to the United States in 1968, he initially trained for his first 9 months at Vince's gym, but he moved over to Gold's Gym for one main reason, because Vince's gym did not have squat racks, and the thighs were always Arnold's weakest point, the hardest muscle for him to develop. So he felt it necessary to move to Gold's Gym so he could do squats. So same goes for leg presses, by the way. Vince did not like leg presses. He thought they were also a big ass builder. Forget about lunges. One time I was sitting in the front. Vince had a couple of chairs behind the desk in the front of his gym, and we used to sit there and watch some people train. I remember I was sitting next to Vince and we were watching a certain bodybuilder train. I won't mention his name, but this was a national level competitor, and he was doing lunges. Vince hated lunges. He thought it was a big ass exercise. That's what he called it. He felt it overdeveloped the glutes. And then he looked at the guy for a couple of minutes, and then Vince turned to me and he said, "Look at that guy." He says his ass is so big you could hide a small child under it in the rain and the kid wouldn't get wet. Of course, this got me hysterically laughing, but that Vince was not a fan of big glutes. Let's put it that way. Vince also felt that doing too many exercise sets and reps was overtraining. It just wasn't necessary. This idea of having to do 20, 30 or more sets per muscle with many, many exercises, with dozens, many, many sets and all these different exercises was a complete waste of time. Like I say, Vince's favorite routines were the 8x8 and 6x6, which usually involved only one exercise done for 8 sets of 8 reps with maximum intensity and minimal rest between sets. Vince felt that promoted maximal muscle growth. There is some exceptions to the rule. Some muscles don't need a lot of exercise. For example, the biceps and triceps are small muscles. They don't need more than 2, at the most 3 exercises. Any more than that is ridiculous. It's just a waste of time. The larger muscles, however, for example, the back, because you have your upper back, middle back, lower back, lats, and all that, they might require as many as 4 or 5 exercises to completely work the back. As far as the legs go, maybe 3 or 4 exercises to work the lower, middle, and upper thigh, and of course you have the hamstrings. So the largest muscle in the body, the back and the legs, might require a couple extra exercises, but they certainly don't require doing 20, 30 sets. That's ridiculous. As I said in the last video, like Bill Pearl pointed out, if you can't fully train a muscle with 15 sets maximum, then you're not training correctly. So Vince didn't like cheating exercises. Vince was a stickler for good form. He felt you should raise a weight using pure muscle. He believed in a full range of exercise. However, a recent study came out which pointed out that cheating, a certain amount of cheating during resistance training can actually be beneficial because it's kind of like taking a muscle past the point of failure. For example, if you do, let's say you do a barbell curl, you go to failure 10 reps, you fail at 10 reps. There's nothing wrong with doing a couple of extra cheating reps, which will actually put additional stress on the muscle and might actually promote increased muscular growth. Or you can do partial reps, where you can't at the bottom range or the extended range of the exercise. If you do partial reps, when you can't do the full reps, that's also been shown to promote muscle growth. So Vince's prohibition of all cheating exercises really is not really doesn't hold according to today's science. Generally, you should use strict form in most exercises, but a little bit of cheating, as long as you don't get ridiculous and throw the weight up in the air, you know what I mean, like you're juggling or something. You got to still always control the weight, even if you're cheating, because if you don't, the velocity involved in cheating, you can actually get a muscle injury. So you always have to be cognizant of controlling the weight, even when you're doing cheating exercises. All right, I'm at the 20-minute mark on this video, and I still have more information about Vince's methods and whether they hold up today, and that's going to be discussed in part 3. So I'm going to end this video today. By the way, in my Applied Metabolics publication, I had a huge article on Vince's training methods and his nutrition ideas. I went into an extreme depth on all of, if anyone who wants to have an idea of the full extent of Vince's training philosophy and his nutrition methods, should subscribe to my Applied Metabolics. The article is in the online article archive. I have a couple of other articles about Vince in Applied Metabolics, and I frequently mention Vince in many of my articles because he was so ahead of his time in his nutrition and training principles, way ahead of his time. But if you want more information about nutrition, exercise science, anti-aging research, ergogenic aids, hormone therapy, supplement science, which supplements work, which ones don't, women's health and fitness, effective fat method burning techniques, all of this and more is in my Applied Metabolics. It's 30 to 40 pages every month, has no advertisements, it's non-commercial. It includes my over 60 years of experience and constant studying and accumulated knowledge, which cannot be matched, to my knowledge, by anyone else. I don't think there's too many people around here that have been studying this stuff for 6 decades. And you know, it's great to have a PhD and or MD, advanced degrees, but there are some things that you have to learn by practical experience that you're never going to be taught in school. And I've learned these things, and they're incorporated in my Applied Metabolics. So subscribe today. It's at www.appliedmetabolics.com. When you subscribe, send me an email, and I'll send you an invitation to join my private Applied Metabolics Facebook page, where each day I post new information on nutrition, exercise science, and general health and medicine. I have an email portal on my Applied Metabolics webpage where current subscribers only can ask me short questions about anything they read in Applied Metabolics or anything they're curious about related to nutrition and exercise, and I will answer the question in appreciation of their subscription to Applied Metabolics. This only applies to current subscribers. It's like a bonus of having a subscription to Applied Metabolics. And no, I don't give out prescriptions. And I guess if you think my videos are of use, please feel free to subscribe to this YouTube channel. I post a new video every Tuesday. Videos are completely free. Please tell others about my channel so I can grow it. Again, it's a no-frills channel, as you can see. But the good news is there's no advertisements. There's no 10% offers, all that shill crap that you see in 99.9% of other YouTube videos, which are basically infomercials. Most of them. Some of them have good information, but they always, 9 times out of 10, they're pushing some product. Some companies paying them big bucks to push their product. So you're never going to get the full story about anything in any of those videos, but you will in mine. That's my promise. I will tell you the whole truth and nothing but, like they used to say in the old detective shows on TV years ago. Anyway, so that's about it. If you want to have the best friend you'll ever have, go to your local shelter and adopt a dog. Thank you for listening. Part 3 is coming next.